Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Casey Skeens. I'm the Communications Manager at ACEEE, the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. Before our speakers begin, I'd like to note a few logistics. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode. Following our speakers' remarks, we will open the webinar up to questions. Throughout the presentations, please type your questions into the chat box and we'll work to address that at the end during the Q&A period. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and we will send the link to registrants after the webinar. And if you're listening to this later and you haven't registered for the webinar, it will be on ACEEE's YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. Before we begin, I want to introduce our panelists. We're joined by Maggie Molina, Senior Director for Policy at ACEEE, Weston Berg, the report's lead author, Senior State Policy Research Analyst at ACEEE, Commissioner Judith Judson of the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, and Chris Rice, the Chief of Staff for Maryland Energy Administration. I will now turn it over to Maggie at ACEEE to start us off. Maggie?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maggie Molina, and I'm Senior Director for Policy with ACEEE. Welcome to today's webinar and release of our 13th Annual State Energy Efficiency Scorecard. Thank you to all of our speakers today for participating. ACEEE is a national nonprofit research organization founded nearly 40 years ago. We're a center of expertise on energy efficiency policies, programs, technologies, and behavior. Our research spans all sectors of the economy, including buildings, industry, transportation, and utilities. And we work across federal, state, and local policy and internationally to advance energy efficiency. States have been at the forefront of promoting energy efficiency policies. They recognize the multiple benefits of efficiency by reducing energy waste. Efficiency lowers energy costs, improves affordability and comfort for households and businesses, creates jobs, and is a critical strategy to reducing carbon emissions and other pollutants. Today, we're proud to release our 13th Annual State Energy Efficiency Scorecard, which is a comprehensive ranking of all 50 states and the District of Columbia on their efficiency policies and performance across all sectors. It ranks states on a range of different efforts, from state and utility programs that help households and businesses save energy by providing incentives for things such as installing more efficient lighting, air conditioning and heating, to building energy codes that ensure new buildings are as efficient as possible, to promoting high efficiency vehicles, and improving strategies to improve land use planning. So the scorecard has evolved over the years, but its objectives have remained consistent. First, it provides an annual benchmark of policies and programs. We collect a large amount of data to assess both how states are performing collectively over time, and also for states to compare their own progress against their peers, and in doing so, spurring some friendly competition. The scorecard also highlights some specific examples, best practices, and case studies. These can serve as models for other states interested in strengthening their own efficiency policies. Now, we know that every state is unique and that strategies may vary somewhat by state. However, by tracking key policy and performance indicators, our scorecard provides an important yardstick to measure success. State leadership on efficiency is critical, and we hope that by highlighting best practices, our scorecard can serve as a roadmap for states to put efficiency into action, to cut energy waste, strengthen their economies, improve affordability, and chart a clean energy future. So with that, I'll turn it back to Casey.
Great, thanks, Maggie. Up next is Weston Berg at ACEEE, the lead author of the state scorecard, and he will discuss the scorecard's key findings. Weston?
Yeah, thanks, Casey, for the introduction, and thanks also to Commissioner Judson and Chris Rice for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump into the results. So here it is, our 2019 state scorecard map, which includes all our state scores, including DC. More than 30 different scoring categories go into these rankings, which include policies addressing efficiency in multiple sectors, including utilities, transportation, buildings, and appliances. States in dark green are those that perform particularly well in the scorecard, while the lighter shaded states are those we see as having the most opportunity to improve. Massachusetts ranked first again this year. This is the 9th consecutive year they placed first. Massachusetts continues to lead the scorecard on the strength of their utility sector efficiency programs, which deliver among the highest levels of savings in the nation. California finished very close behind in 2nd place and has really been a leader across the board on efficiency, from groundbreaking building energy codes to vehicle emission standards to dozens of appliance standards they've adopted over the years. Many of which have gone on to be enacted at the federal level. Also, it should be noted that several states like Washington, Colorado, Hawaii, and Nevada have passed appliance standards recently modeled after California's. You'll also notice a star next to Maryland, which was our most improved state, which we'll get into. Other states showing improvement were Hawaii and New Jersey. First, some national level findings. This year, we saw a remarkable number of states adding to the list of those setting 100% clean energy goals. Up until 2019, it was primarily California and Hawaii that had adopted 100% targets. Since then, we've seen New York, New Mexico, Washington, and Maine added to that list, as well as Puerto Rico and DC. Many of these states also include efficiency as a core part of their decarbonization strategies. Overall, nationally, we've seen state-level savings and investment in energy efficiency remain fairly level this year, with $8 billion in utility sector spending on efficiency and more than 27 million megawatt hours in annual savings reported from measures implemented last year. This equates to roughly enough electricity to power 2.6 million homes for a year, but this also doesn't count for all the savings that continue to accrue from efficiency measures installed in previous years, which account for vastly more savings, depicted by the red bars in this graph, showing how these savings continue to accumulate and provide benefits. So a few additional findings to start. This year's most improved state was Maryland, moving up to 7th place this year, and where utilities have steadily ramped up efficiency programs in recent years, spurred by strong targets to achieve 2% annual savings, in addition to updating efficiency standards for new construction. For the bad news, Kentucky was the state falling the furthest in the ranks, largely a result of regulators drastically cutting Kentucky Power's efficiency budgets early last year. Also, some high-level trends. State-level activity on appliance standards was one of the headline stories in efficiency this year, with California, Washington, Colorado, Hawaii, and Nevada all passing laws. And these efforts come at an important time, as progress on federal standards has generally stalled with the current administration, which recently issued a rule rolling back nationwide light bulb standards that were scheduled to take effect in 2020. We saw several states also pass legislation to protect against this rollback, including Washington, Colorado, and Nevada. The building sector was also an area we saw a lot of progress, with a number of states updating to the latest model building energy codes, including Illinois, Nebraska, Ohio, Maryland, and others. We're also seeing a growing number of states and communities taking steps to move towards zero energy or zero energy ready buildings, either through new building codes like California, as well as through stretch codes, pilot projects, and technical assistance. The other major trend was on state level efforts to champion vehicle efficiency at a time when the federal government is moving forward with plans to freeze standards at model year 2020 levels and revoke California's waiver to set its own standards. Other states' adoption and support of California standards is more important than ever. Currently, 13 states and DC have adopted their GHG standards, with 10 adopting its zero emissions vehicle program. So this is our most recent map showing all states that have set long-term mandatory efficiency targets for utilities. According to our current count, 26 states currently have mandatory multi-year savings targets in place for utilities, and those that do tend to achieve 3 to 4 times more savings on average than those that don't, making it one of the most effective means for policymakers to strengthen efficiency. Last year, we noted some remarkable updates that included New Jersey and New York adopting stronger targets. This year, we also saw a number of states extending targets, including Massachusetts, Maine, Washington, and Wisconsin. New Mexico was also notable this year for effectively doubling their efficiency targets to close to 1%. The bad news story this year was really Ohio passing a nuclear bailout bill that significantly weakened goals for renewables and energy efficiency, creating conditions where it's very unlikely efficiency programs will be sustained into the future. So these next few slides provide a breakout of the scorecard from a regional perspective. So starting in the Midwest, we saw some notable progress in some states, but also some significant steps backwards for others. I'll just note that there's also a lot more information in the report, as well as in our state one-pagers on ACEEE.org. So if you don't hear a particular state here, you can find a lot more information on our website. Illinois updated building energy codes this year and continues to strengthen programs in line with the Future Energy Jobs Act savings goals passed a couple of years ago. Michigan's utilities have also ramped up savings significantly in response to a new incentive structure established in 2016. In Nebraska, it was a huge year for building sector efficiency as they made the leap from the 2009 to the 2018 IECC codes for new construction, the most stringent in the Midwest. And unfortunately, we did see some backslides like Ohio, which we mentioned, as well as from Iowa as well, which has rolled back utility efficiency spending and expanded their customer opt-outs. In the Northeast, we continue to see a lot of leadership with many of these states appearing in the top 10. Massachusetts at number 1, Maryland most improved. Vermont's been very active on advancing appliances standards, and Rhode Island in promoting zero energy buildings. New York, it should be noted, also returned to the top 5 this year, where program administrators continue their pursuit of new aggressive savings goals and net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And we also saw a lot of progress from Maine this year, which was one of several states that adopted a 100% clean energy goal and adopted strong targets for air source heat pumps to move away from fossil fuel heating. In the South, it's traditionally been a bit of a different story, historically less investment in efficiency, but definitely good news to be found. For example, in Virginia, we saw a wide array of new savings programs approved for Dominion Energy, the state's largest utility, earlier this year in response to legislation passed last year. Kentucky was less of a good news story with their drop in utility efficiency investment. And we're also closely watching Florida, where the future really remains to be seen. The State Utility Commission has been reviewing new 5-year utility savings goals, and most of what's been proposed has been very low, so sort of a question mark right now for Florida as they go forward. So moving on to the Southwest, we saw quite a lot of progress this year in Colorado. The state's largest utility continues to post higher savings in response to savings goals approved last year. The state, Colorado also passed major appliance standards legislation this year, not to mention moving forward on vehicle emission standards by adopting California's GHG and zero emission vehicle program. We also wanted to call out Nevada for also adopting federal lighting standards into state law in an effort to guard against the federal rollback. And New Mexico also had a very big year. In March, the state passed legislation adopting a goal to achieve zero carbon electricity by 2045 with strengthened utility targets as well. Finally, moving on to the West, California, Hawaii, and Washington have all established 100% clean energy targets, with energy efficiency making up a big part of those plans. Hawaii also this year passed a significant appliance standards bill for several products. And there's also a lot to share about Washington State, which despite not improving in the rankings this year, did pass a very ambitious slate of climate legislation this year and made a lot of other moves to position itself well into the future. And these included passing the Clean Energy Buildings Act, which made it the first state to adopt an energy performance standard for existing buildings, specifically applying to large commercial buildings. And I should again reiterate that these are just a few of the developments from the region. Much more is available on our state scorecard website and policy database. So just to summarize and wrap up, with a summary of some of the more prominent strategies states should continue to look towards as they think about ways to reduce energy waste across their economies. To begin with, establishing a strong multi-year energy efficiency resource standard to really encourage utility savings investment, as half of states now have done, as well as coupling these with performance incentives to further motivate utility investment. In the building sector, updating building energy codes, but also taking steps to ensure compliance with those codes through periodic studies and supporting code training for code officials. In the transportation sector, adopting stringent tailpipe emission standards, which we're seeing a lot of states moving to join California on in adopting emission standards in their zero energy vehicle program to continue to push the industry despite federal rollbacks. Similarly with adoption of appliance standards, even when state appliance standards are not adopted at the federal level, adoption by just a few states can be enough to impact national markets, which a number of states this year have recognized. So, a lot of opportunities here. I guess I just wanted to close by saying this was a really exciting year for state level efficiency efforts. We saw a lot of progress, not just from states that have historically been leading the pack, but by many others. So thanks for listening to our findings from the scorecard. I'll pass it now back over to Casey to introduce our speakers.
Great, thanks so much, Weston. I'd now like to turn it over to Judith Judson. Commissioner Judson she's served as the commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources since 2015. She chairs the Massachusetts Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, and she also serves on the boards of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and National Association of State Energy Offices. Commissioner Judson?
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Casey, for that warm welcome. On behalf of Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and Secretary Theo Herides, it is a pleasure to participate in this webinar today and to celebrate the success of the energy efficiency industry throughout the nation, and especially here in Massachusetts. Congratulations to the other top states, to California, and our neighbors, Rhode Island and Vermont. And I'd also like to welcome back New York to the top 5 this year. Congratulations for your achievements and continued success in energy efficiency. Congratulations to Chris Rice and the state of Maryland for being recognized as the most improved state this year. I'd also like to thank Steve, Maggie, and Weston and ACEEE for using this scorecard to bring attention and awareness to energy efficiency and helping us as state policymakers to learn from each other's policies and programs. Here in the Commonwealth, the Department of Energy Resources' mission is to create a clean, affordable, and resilient energy future by developing a balanced and diversified energy portfolio that aligns with our greenhouse gas reduction commitments, which includes solar, offshore wind, hydropower, emerging technologies such as energy storage, and of course, our successful energy efficiency programs. We are honored and incredibly proud to lead the nation in energy efficiency, being ranked #1 in the nation for 9 years in a row. The Baker-Polito administration is committed to maintaining our leadership and reducing energy costs and emissions for Massachusetts residents and businesses. In our Clean Energy and Climate Plan, energy efficiency is the single largest and most cost-effective contributor to meeting our 2020 goal of a 25% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions below 1990 levels. The Commonwealth's commitment to energy efficiency cuts across all of ACEEE's criteria, including utilities, state and municipal operations, vehicles, building codes, and combined heat and power. And we have continued to renew our investment and update our policy in these areas as markets grow and new opportunities emerge. Investment in a robust industry for energy efficiency services is an economic driver in our Commonwealth. The Clean Energy Jobs Report for last year shows over 110,000 jobs in our state, with the majority being in energy efficiency. It also shows clean energy employment increased by 84% since 2010, and this $13.2 billion sector now represents 2.5% of our total statewide economy. We are not resting on our laurels, however, and in January, our Department of Public Utilities approved Massachusetts' next statewide 3-year energy efficiency plan for the period of 2019 to 2021. We could not achieve this level of success without our Mass Save energy efficiency program administrators. The 2019 to 2021 efficiency plan represents a $2.8 billion investment expected to achieve over $9 billion in benefits for our consumers. The plan sets the highest natural gas savings goals to date, and as we look to electrify our economy, buildings, and transportation sectors, we have shifted our electric efficiency programs to focus on overall energy reduction rather than just electricity reduction through a new multiple savings goal framework that includes overall MMBTU reduction. Expansions in our current 3-year plan include a focus on reducing energy during peak periods when costs and emissions are highest for customers, including active demand management programs and new incentives for energy storage. Incentives for strategic electrification and fuel switching from switching from more expensive and higher emitting fuels to efficient technologies such as cold climate air source heat pumps. Continued and expanded focus to reach more customers, including moderate income, non-English speakers, renters, and small businesses, and new incentives for passive house construction to achieve deeper energy savings in new construction. In addition to the work we're doing through Mass Save, we've also invested in energy efficiency on a local level, with 78% of our population now living in a green community. Our Green Community Program provides grants to cities and towns for a range of projects, from ventilation system upgrades and high-efficiency lighting to installation of insulation and energy management systems at municipal buildings and facilities, as well as projects to install LED streetlights, fuel switching, electric vehicles, and electric vehicle charging stations. To create more sustainable state government operations, our Leading by Example program provides grants to state agencies, authorities, and public colleges and universities to reduce the overall environmental impacts of state government through clean energy and energy efficiency projects, which has included large-scale efficiency projects at state facilities, lighting upgrades, renewable thermal technology deployment, and operational improvements. We continue to focus on building energy codes as well as a cost-effective way to achieve energy-efficient new construction. Massachusetts adopted the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code earlier this year. Additionally, 273 communities in the Commonwealth have adopted the Massachusetts Stretch Energy Code, committing to new construction that is more energy efficient than our base code. In closing, I'd like to recognize the work that so many of you on the call do day in and day out, including many of our partners here in Massachusetts, what they have done to contribute to the success of energy efficiency. We could not succeed without our dedicated partners in the legislature, our utilities and program administrators, our local and state governments across the state, our Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, and with many other partners and stakeholders. Thank you again to the ACEEE for recognizing the Commonwealth's achievements in energy efficiency, and to all our partners who have made this possible. Massachusetts and the Baker-Polito administration looks forward to continuing our commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and costs for consumers through energy efficiency. And I look forward to ongoing collaboration with many of the other states recognized today in ACEEE's report. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks Commissioner Judson. Next, I'd like to introduce Chris Rice, the Chief of Staff for the Maryland Energy Administration, who brings over a decade of experience in the energy sector impacting all areas of Maryland's economy. Chris?
Thank you, and good morning. I want to first thank everybody at ACEEE for inviting me to speak today about some of the energy efficiency highlights in Maryland. I would like to also congratulate ACEEE on the completion of the 13th annual scorecard report. Maryland uses this report annually to, and I think Maggie at beginning of this webinar mentioned competition and healthy competition. We really look at this report and see what the other states are doing, what best practices are out there, and then we go about, improving our processes and programs accordingly. So really want to thank you guys and encourage you guys to continue to develop this scorecard. So today I'm going to briefly go over 2 programs among many in Maryland's Energy Efficiency Toolkit. The first is building codes. And so Maryland is frequently listed as a state example of proactive and reliable energy code adoption. And, that's because Maryland law requires that the state adopt the International Building Code, including the International Energy Conservation Code as part of Maryland's building performance standards. So the law also requires that Maryland building performance standards be kept current with each new version of the International Building Code. So this mechanism for automatic code adoption helps Maryland keep in the forefront of energy conservation progress. The second tool in our arsenal is the Empower Maryland program. In 2008, the state enacted the Empower Maryland Energy Efficiency Act, or Empower Maryland. Empower Maryland established a statewide goals for electricity efficiency on a per capita basis. And in 2017, the state updated Empower Maryland energy savings goals and required participating electric companies to provide cost-effective energy efficiency and conservation programs that are designed to achieve additional targeted annual incremental gross energy savings of 2%, with a ramp up of 0.02% per year until the 2% goal per year of savings rate is achieved. So Empower Maryland continues to address the needs of residents of Maryland by providing cost-effective energy efficiency programs that reduce the need for new generation and delayed transmission and distribution upgrades. The expected life cycle energy savings for Maryland's Empower program are estimated at over $9 billion program to date. In 2018, the life cycle cost per kilowatt hour for utility programs was 2.3 cents, which is a fraction of the cost of standard offer service in Maryland, which is between 7.4 and 8.1%. So the state continues to ensure that all segments of the population are able to participate in Empower energy efficiency programs by administering programs for historically underserved households in the state. And this is a very important aspect of our program to include everybody and make sure everybody's served and able to participate in this program. The Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development operates the Empower low-income programs on behalf of the utilities and the states. In 2018, over 1,600 households were served, averaging savings per participant of 1,296 kilowatt hours, and that's just in the low-income programs. So, if anybody has any questions about the Empower data mentioned, please let me know, and I can share the report with ACEEE for distribution. Again, I want to thank ACEEE for allowing Maryland to speak today and for compiling the 13th report.
Great, thanks, Chris. We'll now be transitioning to the Q&A portion of the program. As a reminder, please type your question into the chat box. All of our speakers are available for questions, but if your question is for a specific speaker, please include that along with your question. So to start, we had a question about if the PowerPoint would be available after the presentation, and I do want to flag that we will be posting it online following the presentation. And then we'll go with the first question for Weston. What do you hope states will get out of this report?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Energy efficiency is sometimes an overlooked as an indivisible resource, but we found it to be also the least cost resource for meeting our energy needs. There's a lot of benefits that come along with energy efficiency that include lowering pollution, creating jobs, reducing energy burdens for those most in need. Our scorecard report, if you go into it, it's a long report, but we do include over 30 different metrics in there for each state. So we, it's a great resource for looking at what your state has done and where there's opportunities to improve. And you can also find out more information if don't want to read the whole report. There's also our state score sheets. We have one-pagers for each state that provide a summary of how states have done in terms of each of these policy categories. And then if you're interested in doing more of a deep dive on some of these different efficiency policies and the history behind them, I'd encourage folks to look at the state and local policy database as well. But really intended to provide a resource for how states can to look at how other states in your region are doing and to learn from them. So yeah.
Great, and we'll do a clarification for Maggie real quick. We've got a couple different questions on utilities. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure, this is Maggie Molina with ACEEE. A couple of the questions are about very specific utility program offerings, things like preventative maintenance of HVAC equipment or pay-as-you-save efficiency program models. These are great examples of specific offerings utilities and other program administrators can offer to their customers. The state scorecard takes a higher level view though. We look at overall performance, things like spending and savings performance metrics in the utility chapter. I would highlight though a future report coming out in early 2020, our utility energy efficiency scorecard will be taking a deeper dive into the 50 largest electric utilities, including specific program strategies. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of those points about the utility chapter in this scorecard.
Great, thanks so much. Let's see. Where's the one now? So here's a question for Weston. In the analysis, you mentioned state level 100% renewable resolutions. Are you also accounting for local 100% renewable resolutions for cities and counties?
So our state scorecard, it's specific to state level policies. So in terms of local resolutions, our scorecard doesn't directly account for those. I should mention we also do have a city clean energy scorecard that does get into that a bit more, but we look specifically at state level targets. So as I mentioned, one thing we highlight is states with energy efficiency, resource standards, and a lot of these states are making those standards a part of state level strategies to achieve the renewable energy portfolio standards.
And this is Maggie with ACEEE, just to reinforce the focus of this report on energy efficiency. Often we find that renewable energy resolutions tend to get more attention, but energy efficiency can help cities and states meet aggressive, ambitious clean energy targets. And as Weston pointed out, 26 states currently have an energy efficiency resource standard, which provides that clear long-term target for requiring utilities to implement energy efficiency programs. So efficiency and renewable energy goals can work in tandem towards ambitious clean energy targets.
Great, thanks so much. The next question is for Commissioner Judson. Both the sustainable economy and a healthy climate require that the overall energy efficiency improve at 3% per year or better. But the US has managed only around 2.1% in the last 20 years, and Massachusetts is only at about 2.4%. How will the scorecard promote that bigger rate of improvement?
Yeah, so I mean, our goals are higher than that in our energy efficiency program for electric reduction, and then we have the highest ever goals now for our gas savings programs. We are absolutely committed to achieving energy efficiency across all our sectors, and we're putting a particular focus now on not just looking at electric reduction, because one of the ways we're going to achieve efficiency is through electrifying more of our building and heating, as well as electrifying our transportation. So we're looking at overall energy reduction, and we have for the first time a new way of measuring that by measuring energy reduction in MMBTUs, not just megawatt hours. And so we are focused on that broader energy reduction and really taking advantage of the fact that our state, in addition to being a leader on energy efficiency, has been doing many, many actions to increase our clean, renewable electric sources. So by promoting the use of that electricity through electrification in building and transportation, we're going to be able to continue to achieve very high levels of overall energy use reduction.
Great, thanks so much. Chris, would you care to talk about how in Maryland the scorecard will help promote that bigger rate of improvement on kind of investments to increase energy efficiency?
Sure. So, you know, we have the Empower Maryland program that I mentioned briefly, and the program, it goes in 3-year cycles, and 2021 is the beginning of a new cycle. And leading up to the new cycle, you know, participating interveners in the Empower Maryland program will suggest new programs, innovative ways of reaching our targets, the utilities targets, and everybody gets around the table and discusses them. And so the scorecard will certainly gives us vision into best practices of, you know, around the country. And we utilize the scorecard as we develop the list of potential programs that we want to see run in the next cycle of the Empower Maryland program.
Great. Anything to add, Maggie?
Sure. So the 2% savings threshold per year in the utility sector, yes, that's some of the leading states. We're seeing 2 to 2.7% per year in their goals, but that's just in the utility sector. If we look at the efforts in the transportation sector, and if we were to add all those together, we would be seeing much higher percentage energy savings as a percent per year. So as leading states set more ambitious clean energy climate targets, like we just heard in Maryland and Massachusetts, and we've also seen in New York, for example, we see efficiency needing to ramp up to 3% or higher. And we think efficiency can help meet those more ambitious clean energy targets at those higher rates.
Great, thanks so much. Now, this one's for Weston. Could you highlight 2 to 3 key policies that states could implement that would have the greatest impact? I know you talked about this very briefly earlier, but if you could go into it in a little more detail.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things ACEEE has always called out is the importance of having a state energy efficiency resource standard that provides a robust policy framework for utilities to achieve greater levels of savings. As we mentioned, I think earlier, about half of states currently have an ERS in place. Probably around 16 or 17 states have targets in place for not just electricity, but also natural gas. And the states that do have mandatory multi-year savings targets in place for utilities tend to report savings around 3 or 4 times more than those that don't have targets in place. In addition, can't emphasize enough the importance of regularly updating building energy codes for new construction. Some other things we're looking at in the future is also targeting the existing building sector. So we did also want to call out Washington for its new legislation this year aimed at large commercial buildings. So those are just a kind of a couple of the big ones we highlight in the report.
Great. And here's another question for Weston. What are the limitations of the Public Service Commission or Public Utility Commission approach to setting efficiency targets? Are there other approaches being used by states to generate like program ideas?
This is Maggie with ACEEE. We recently released a report on the next generation of energy efficiency resource standards. And for the states looking at utility regulatory models to advance efficiency, we're seeing in several of those states interest in going to a multiple goals approach and going beyond just regulated energy sources. So I mentioned earlier more ambitious climate and clean energy targets that are economy-wide, for example, and looking at those more holistic energy savings targets as an opportunity for states to leverage the utility sector efficiency targets with other transportation and industrial sector efficiency as well. So we see the utility regulatory approach being a key component of a more holistic economy-wide target setting process.
Great, thanks so much. And here's one for Commissioner Judson. Do you have estimates on kind of the average cost of like the incentives per resident? Or like how much would it cost to do air sealing and insulation for each resident? Do you have any like kind of estimates for that?
It really does vary by type of residence and I should say, as well as building type. And we are very focused on not just serving single family, but also multifamily, making sure we're reaching renters. So there's a lot of variation. But what I will say is that our low income programs cover air sealing and insulation 100%. Our market rate programs, which means all of their residents in the Commonwealth have access to 100% coverage on air sealing and 75% of the cost of insulation. So we put high incentives in place because there's so much value from having that weatherization and that savings, particularly in Massachusetts, where we have cold winters, and the amount of savings as well as comfort and other benefits that go to residents is really valuable. We have new incentives that are higher and are looked at holistically for new construction, particularly passive house, where we've worked quite closely with our program administrators on how to really encourage and the development of new construction using passive house construction so that we have that really deep level of energy efficiency. And those deeper savings that can come from some of the innovation in construction, can provide that, as we move forward, greater and greater savings from energy efficiency, which will help reduce not only energy costs, but emissions as well. So that's we think of everything in terms of the benefit to the consumer, but we can also follow up on specifics. But it very much varies your specific question as to the type of building.
Great, thanks. So we had a question on like Kentucky's kind of backsliding versus Ohio's backsliding in the state scorecard. Weston, can you shed a little bit more light on that?
Yeah, sure. I should mention that. So in some ways, the scorecard can be a little bit of a lagging indicator in terms of the status of certain programs. The primary reason Kentucky fell more was because the decision made there to reduced investment and efficiency have happened a little bit further in the past. So last year, they really kind of really showed up in the numbers in terms of their 2018 reported savings. So, and that's a big part of a fairly large portion of the score goes to utility reported electric savings. So, and so for Ohio, because the decision is still pretty recent, they did lose points on the energy efficiency savings targets, but they are still achieving savings as of right now. It's mainly looking for the conditions there in terms of prohibiting cost recovery, lowering savings targets in the future, have created conditions where the state's rank will likely fall in the future, assuming the weakening legislation on efficiency standards still stands. So, yeah, I'd say stay tuned for the future to see where Ohio lands in coming years.
Great, thanks so much. And this question, we're going to go to Chris first. What formal mechanisms such as NASIO or informal means for interstate collaboration are being used to share best practices kind of across state lines for policymakers and stakeholders?
Well, we participate heavily in NASIO, as you mentioned, also the National Governors Association, and the call that we're on right now, the ACEEE, as well. And on a regional basis, we work with MWCOG. The Washington Metropolitan COG.
Great, thanks so much. Commissioner Judson, do you want to speak to how things are moving in Massachusetts, kind of across state lines and sharing best practices?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to thank ACEEE for doing a scorecard. It's not just about ranking us against each other, but it's about encouraging best practices and really being able to learn from our colleagues. Sorry if you can hear the siren in the background. That learn from our colleagues on programs that really work. We want to make sure we're delivering the best possible service to our residents and businesses for energy efficiency. So learning from other states is very valuable. We, of course, are part of other organizations as well. I serve on the board of NASIO. NASIO is a tremendous organization that really promotes collaboration across state energy offices on energy efficiency as well as other energy matters. But I think that's a very useful organization and forum for discussion of best practices. Here in the Northeast region, we, as a state, are part of a regional electric grid, so we work with our other New England states quite closely. We have regular regional collaboration here, and we have organizations in the Northeast focused on energy efficiency, such as NEEP. And then, of course, our program administrators and utilities serve more than one state. So we work closely with them and things that our utilities are learning, as well as our Energy Efficiency Council often has experience from other states. So we are proud to be number one, but we're also very proud of the fact that we can work collaboratively with other states and really learn from other policies that work well. So that we can continue to make progress, and it's really about delivering that energy savings, cost, and emissions reductions for our consumers.
Great, thanks so much. So here's a question: is ACEEE tracking the best programs in the country that are available to customers who receive unregulated, quote, delivered heating fuels like propane or fuel oil? Weston, do you want to shed some light on that issue?
Yeah, I guess on a limited basis, we are trying to move in that direction in the scorecard with greater interest and push towards electrification as a means to meet state greenhouse gas emissions goals. We are, in the past, we used to primarily just look at electric savings and natural gas savings. Now we're also trying to account for other savings from delivered fuels like propane and other things. So through our data requests to states and utility commissions, we've been gathering data on how much utilities are estimating that they're saving from types of programs that address those types of fuels. And we've incorporated that into a new metric that considers not just natural gas, but also savings from delivered fuels. And so, we are seeing that, particularly in a lot of the Northeast states are primarily ones that have provided us that data. And certainly that's something we're looking to track more going forward as states like Massachusetts and Maine set goals for air source heat pumps and transitioning away from delivered fuels.
Great. Commissioner Judson or Chris, anything to add on in your states?
Yeah, so, a lot of our homes in Massachusetts have delivered fuels as a heating source. That can be both high emissions and high cost for consumers. So we do have the ability in our efficiency programs that are run by our utilities to offer services for consumers that heat with delivered fuels, and so we do that. And we recently had legislation, bipartisan legislation that was signed by Governor Baker in 2018 that allowed for that to even be expanded to include commercial customers as well. So in this 3-year plan that started in 2019, we have that focus not just on electric savings, but on energy savings so that we are capturing the benefits that are achieved by creating efficiencies for customers that use delivered fuels and encourage fuel switching where appropriate to new technologies such as air source heat pumps that can provide not only cost but emissions benefits as well. So that is an area that is supported in our state, as well as an area that I will continue to focus on and where we can make continual progress so that we're getting that overall energy savings for residents and businesses.
Great, thanks. Chris, anything to add on delivered heating fuels like propane and fuel oil in your state?
Yeah, so through some of the programs that the Maryland Energy Administration runs, one of the examples in the past would be our Farm Energy Audit Program and our Farm Energy Efficiency Program. And under that, there was, more propane and heating oil utilized and saved. And we targeted those as a source, as an eligible technologies under our programs.
Great, thanks so much. So we have one question from someone in Louisiana for Weston. Can you, Louisiana doesn't have one of the best ratings on the scorecard. Can you shed a little bit light on why their rating is a little bit on the low end?
Yeah, sure. So in Louisiana, we have seen some movement in recent years. The Public Service Commission did enact rules in 2013 to push utilities to offer quick start programs to deliver some levels of utility savings. Since then, we just haven't seen the programs evolve since then, although there's plans to scale them up in the future. So that's something we're watching. So the Louisiana does score pretty low in our utility savings chapter. I'd say also on building energy efficiency policies as well, there's opportunities to update their codes for new construction. Right now, they're currently still on the 2009 ICC, so there's opportunities there to update the codes as well to target the efficiency of the building sector.
Great. Well, we're in our last 5 minutes of the webinar here. Let me go to Chris on this one. Do you have like 1 or 2 examples of down-to-earth, localized things that are happening on the ground in your state that you'd like to talk about?
Sure. One of the really successful programs that we've been running for the past couple of years is the Maryland Smart Energy Community Program, and that targets local governments and counties, local municipalities and counties. And what we do there is we encourage the adoption of 2 of 3 energy policies. So it would be an energy efficiency policy, a renewable energy policy, or alternative transportation policy, i.e. Transportation petroleum reduction policy. And then we provide some carrots on the back end to develop a baseline of energy usage, and then to develop a plan to meet these policy goals and objectives that they've passed. And then yet a few more carrots on the back end to help them implement some of these projects on an ongoing basis. And once you are into the program, you can continue to apply for grants to help assist implement those projects and strategies to meet those goals.
Great. And Commissioner Judson, any local down-to-earth examples of programs you're excited about in about a minute or two?
Yeah, so well, we're really excited about the fact that we're continuing to expand our municipal partnerships and working very closely also with our regional planning authorities on how we can deliver efficiency not only to the municipality but also to residents, and recognizing that energy efficiency, many of the choices are made by consumers, and having that education and that outreach, that door-to-door, that local outreach can make such a difference for really ensuring that our programs are serving everyone in the Commonwealth equitably. And as part of that, we're introducing new tools like a home energy scorecard to make it easy to understand the benefits of investing in energy efficiency. So that engagement with the consumer is absolutely fundamental to continuing greater and greater emission savings, as well as delivering cost savings equitably across the Commonwealth.
Great, thanks so much. Well, that is it for today's webinar. I want to thank all of our panelists and all of our attendees for joining today's webinar on ACEEE's 2019 State Scorecard. We will be sending a link if you registered to the recording around to the registrants in the next day or two, and you will also be able to find an archived version of this webinar on ACEEE's YouTube page in the next 24 hours. If you have any additional press questions, you can direct them to me by emailing CSKEE, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, at ACEEE.org, or giving me a call at 202-507-4043. Thanks again to all of our panelists, and enjoy the rest of your day.